Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Sensibility and Sea Monsters by Jane Austen and Ben H. Winters. And this book takes Sense and Sensibility, which is a classic period romance, and combines it with all kinds of pulpy, science fiction-y, fantasy kind of elements. You got sea captains slicing off people's heads. You have giant sea monsters, serpents, giant jellyfish, all kinds of stuff. I do appreciate all the illustrations that they have throughout the book with like these giant sea monsters and stuff like that. That's a lot of fun. Now, here's the thing. If you like Sense and Sensibility, that is here. If you like sea monsters, that is also here. Do they mix well together? Not entirely. But on their own, it's still the story of Sense and Sensibility, so that works. And the actual elements with the sea monsters never transcend just some pulpy sci-fi elements. You have like these big creatures and stuff like that. They're crazy, they're fun, they're trying to get away from them, trying to defeat them in some way, shape, or form, and they kind of just get thrown in there to kind of zest things up, along with, what's going on in terms of this romance, because it's like, you obviously from the cover see attractive woman and Davy Jones. And basically that's what this kind of turns into, is you take some of these characters, you change them up a bit, throw in some sea monsters, and you have Sense and Sensibility and sea monsters. It kind of feels as tacked on as the title, because, just and sea monsters. But they're fun, they're pulpy, and exciting in those elements when they do focus on the big sea monsters. But, it's still just Sense and Sensibility with tacked on sea monsters. So if you're not a fan of Sense and Sensibility, not really that period romance kind of person, then I don't know how much these sea monsters are really going to attract you when this is still over a 300-page book about a period romance. But, it's still relying upon Jane Austen's work, her ideas, and things like that to be able to tell this story. Just, Winters throws in his own little flair, and that flair's name, Sea Monsters. So, I think at this point, we've seen so many period romances, and you probably think that you've read this before, even if you haven't, because you've seen all these elements before. But I think it's an interesting mashup. It's still enjoyable. It just, I don't know how much it transcends either thing going on. Does it add up to be more than the sum of its parts? Not necessarily. It more is like, hey, if I'm this Sense and Sensibility kind of person, I'm enjoying this. But do I like sea monsters? Do I like big fantasy kinds of things like that? If not, that might take you out of the book. If you're not really into the romance and you just keep throwing sea monsters in there, that might get you excited. But how are you going to feel in between? So in the end, I think this is a kind of awkward mashup of these two ideas, but to some extent, it's still an enjoyable time. But those are my thoughts on Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters. Let me know what you think. Let's talk some books. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.